rambunctious little bambinos, JD here, your aggregator-in-chief, scouring the universe, bringing you the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Marcelo, back with us in the booth. Good to have you back, Marcelo. Brad on the appropriate side of the glass, rarely seen, rarely heard, producing the program. And here we go with today's poll question at jerrydoyle.com. The GOP-controlled House of Representatives is spending 5 hours today debating tomorrow's 31st vote on the repeal of the Supreme Court-affirmed Obamacare. Question is, how do you see it? 22% of the people say, what's the over-under by Election Day? 28% say, has to be done again and again and again. And 50% of the people say, it is pure political theater. You can answer it there at the website, jerrydoyle.com, or here on the program where intellectual anarchy is encouraged and nurtured for now. We were thinking about preempting today's program, all 3 hours, and just going to a live feed on C-SPAN 1 of our elected cockroaches on Capitol Hill, scurrying about and doing the good work of focusing on the economy and... Oh, wait a minute. No, that's right. This is the 31st attempt by the Republicans who say Obama has been distracted from the economy and jobs and should be focused on the economy and jobs, and are today doing a job wasting 5 hours, yet once again voting to repeal tomorrow the vote, Obamacare, in an effort to make sure that they can get headlines, bylines, little quippy quotes in their walk pieces as they go back to the districts all across our fruited plain and tell people what a wonderful job they did and how many times they voted to repeal or defund Obamacare. And I started watching this fiasco this morning, and I was in a little bit of an altered state. I have to thank LJ Harness, Cadillac of Las Vegas, for inviting me out last night to the Tap House over on Charleston here in Las Vegas. It's a Monday night open mic jam session. Musicians from all over the city get together, and it kicks off at 7:30. And I left last night at 11:45 on a school night. I'm usually in bed for an hour and 45 minutes by the time 11:45 rolls around. But it was such a kick-ass time. Everybody just really just enjoying the music. Great camaraderie. People of all, walks of life, different backgrounds, just really sitting around. And despite just how crappy it can be out there and just how nasty some of this economic turmoil we're living through can be, it was a great opportunity for about 5 hours for people just to put that all aside and to just get around and have a good time and listen to some really great music. And it's a regular Monday night occurrence, so perhaps I'm going to have to adjust my schedule so that on Monday nights I'm at the Tap House. And the next time you guys are in town, we're going to have to go because it was just an absolute laugh riot, great time. And it was so out of my wheelhouse to go out on a school night. Because usually, like as an actor, I had a 5 and 2 policy. 5 days a week, the body was a temple. 2 days a week, it was an amusement park. Now, when I kind of retired from acting, the park was open 7 days a week. but and then being in radio, who the hell cares? The park's open 7 days a week. What's the point? Who's going to see you? Until, of course, they decided we had to start Skyping the show. And as I was getting a biscuit short of $3.50, I said, well, maybe I better go back to the 5 and 2 because we know the camera adds 10 pounds, and so does 10 years. That seems to add 10 pounds, too. So anyway, Monday nights, Tap House, it's great. And there's also got some event that they're doing at Boca Park this Saturday. I don't have all the details yet, but it's like a 4-hour event. I believe LJ, did you contact him, Brad? Is he coming on the program on Friday?
1:30, yeah.
1:30 on Friday, yeah. So they got this big 4-hour event. It's going to be food, music, fashion show. And what I like about what they're doing is they're not focusing on the negatives. And there's so much of it out there. There is so much agony and defeat. But there's also the thrill of victory. A little Jim McKay tie-in to the old ABC Wide World of Sports. As bad as it can be, and it is, and as horrible as we see politicians supposedly addressing the problems that are going to benefit us, every once in a while, you just got to find that port in the storm. You got to find a place to blow it all out and have a good time. And at least for a couple of hours, be able to say, at least I'm alive. At least I'm having fun. And I don't know what the individual stories were of all the people that were there last night. Because, like I said, they came from all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, all different demographic backgrounds. And it was basically there was a focal point of where they were just there to enjoy the music and the company and to have a really good time. And maybe when people left at 12:30 in the morning, they went back out to their car that maybe they were behind a payment or two, and maybe they went back to their house that was about to be foreclosed on. And that was the same circumstances that they left to go there that they were going back to afterward. But somewhere in the middle of that, what would be to many a horror story of an existence, they found a little port in the storm, a little place where they could just kind of, kick it and have a good time. And I think that's really important for us to keep in mind these days, because it is just brutal out there. I mean, I got horror stories today. I know we were trying to go to summer programming and lighten some things up, but I'm finding things, and maybe there's a certain beauty in the lull of the summer where you maybe have a little bit more opportunity to go and look at things that have been overlooked. And I'm finding things that you would just say, that can't be true. That didn't happen. That's not possible. Who didn't catch that? Why isn't something being done about it? And more, I see these kind of stories coming to the forefront. And I give you an example. You don't even have to know what this is. LIBOR, London Interbank Overnight Rate, which is basically lending between banking institutions. LIBOR, you've heard it in the news because they were manipulating the LIBOR rate, and some guy had a step down at Barclays, and he's forfeiting $30 million in pay. But LIBOR basically is a rate by which $550 trillion worth of loans, repos, swaps, repurchase agreements, all is set, treasury rates, all this stuff is set to. And they've been lying about the LIBOR rate since as far back as I can see as 2007. And our current Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, that crook, that charlatan, the son of Shifty, the former Treasury Secretary, this guy, when he was the head of the Bank of New York Fed, he was told in August of 2007, they scheduled a meeting in 2008 fixing LIBOR. They knew it was going on back then. Now, if your mortgage was tied to LIBOR, all they got to do is cheat the rate by a 32nd, by a teeny, by an eighth, by a quarter. And when people say, "Oh, what'd you get on your mortgage rate?" Remember the old days of the mortgage rates? You used to go, I got 4 7/8. Really? I'm paying 5 1/8. And that spread between what you and your friend got was like, how did you get 4 7/8? And I'm paying 5 1/8. And somebody says, well, I got 4 3/4. Damn, you got 4 3/4? I'm paying 4 7. I'm going to have to refi at a lower rate. Well, imagine if all of the mortgages were manipulated so that you were paying more and I and everybody else was paying more. You would think that somebody in government would pay attention to that. They knew. They all knew. This gets back to my point that they knew this financial meltdown was coming. They knew it. They saw it. They talked about it. They had breakout sessions to discuss it at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, as far back as 2003. Documented. They all knew. The Federal Reserve knew. The central banks knew. The Treasury secretaries knew. Leadership in the Congress knew. The president then knew. The president now knows. They all knew. They all wanted it to continue. Why? Because they were all making a ton of money. Why? Because it's all about Buck Rogers. No Bucks. No Buck Rogers. And they're not going to buck the system. They're not going to tell the people on Wall Street, you need to clean up your act. Because if they tell them to clean up their act and they do things to make them clean up their act, what's going to happen? The money's going to dry up. That's the way they're going to say, we don't like what you're telling us. We don't like what you're saying. We don't like what you're doing. We're not going to give you money to get yourselves reelected. I find more and more of these stories out there. These are huge, huge issues. I'll give you another example. The CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. They decided now that they're putting rules in place when the $600 trillion horse has left the barn. Now they're going to regulate derivatives when derivatives are at $600 trillion, which is 10 times the gross domestic product of the entire planet. Now it's time to get around to putting checks and balances in place. This is the kind of stuff that I think maybe instead of 5 hours of wasted time today, debating the Supreme Court affirmed Obamacare, where the Republicans are going to get it passed. It's not going to go to the Senate. If it does go to the Senate, Harry Reid's not going to do anything with it. If it even manages to get out of the Senate, it's not going to be signed by Obama. They don't have the 60 votes on the Republican side to override the presidential veto. It's a go-nowhere issue. It's all just political theater. It's all designed to make it look like they're working on our behalf, and they're not. This is a rigged game, folks. This is a two-party status quo rigged game, and we're the pawns on the chessboard. We're now in the game of protecting the royalty. We're expendable. That's why there's a lot of pawns on the chessboard. And that's why there's only one king and one queen and a few rooks and a couple of castles. And what do they call the dudes on the horses on the chessboard?
Those are knights.
Knights. That's what we're doing. We're protecting the royalty. And I'm looking at these idiots on the House floor right now, wasting 5 hours debating something for the 31st time. Steve Centani, Fox News contributor, this morning, talking to Bill Clueless Hemmer about how the Democrats are reacting to the vote.
How are Democrats in general reacting to the repeal effort, Steve?
Well, most of them think the House is wasting its time, even though the law itself is unpopular. Individual parts of it do enjoy widespread support, like eliminating the ban on coverage for pre-existing conditions and that lifetime cap. So we're likely to hear a lot of fiery debate on this repeal, but again, it's largely symbolic.
Largely symbolic. And even Republicans know it's symbolic. Even John Boehner, the House Majority Leader, was called out on this when he was telling the American people that the Republicans have strengthened their resolve to voting to repeal Obamacare.
They made their decision. I respect their ability to make that decision. But all it really does is strengthen my resolve and resolve of Republicans here in Washington to repeal this awful law.
The House has already voted some 30 times to repeal or defund this law. What's one more vote
going to do? And we're going to do it one more time.
What's the point?
We want to show people we are resolved to get rid of this.
What's the point? I'll tell you what the point is. I won't tell you. I'll let Michelle Bachmann, the Republican Congresswoman, tell you what the point is. The point is it's all about the show and not about the go.
In all likelihood, you will see the House of Representatives put forward a full-scale repeal bill. In all likelihood, we will pass that even before the November election. But that will be for show only, because in all likelihood, Harry Reid and Barack Obama are not about to deviate from what the Supreme Court did today.
What's the point?
What's the point? The point is so they can pad their walking brochures, so they can put out their commercials, so that they can BS the American people one more time, just like they did in the last election go-round. If you give Republicans control of the House, we're going to vote to repeal Obamacare. And? What do you mean, and? Well, if you give us the power, we're going to vote to repeal Obamacare. And? What they didn't tell everybody, and a lot of people, I guess, didn't know, was that unless the Republicans control the Senate, unless the Republicans control the White House, it's a useless vote. It's a waste of time. But now what are they saying? Well, if you give us the Senate and you give us the White House and we have control of the House, then we'll repeal Obamacare. Only one thing has to be known here, folks. It's all crap. It's all garbage, because it's not going to be repealed, because there's provisions in Obamacare that are almost beyond repeal. And here's the problem the Republicans have, is that there are provisions within Obamacare that are hugely popular. And the Republicans aren't going to make a move on this until after they get the power. And then guess what happens when the Republicans get the power? They say they're powerless because the Democrats are standing in their way. And then where do we go? Then we go to the Democrats saying, see, the Republicans dropped the ball. They had the mandate from the American people. And if you just give the Democrats control of the House, we'll vote to uphold the popular provisions of Obamacare. We'll vote to uphold what the American people hold near and dear to their health hearts. And then if you give the Democrats the Senate and the White House back in 4 years or 8 years, then we'll be able to deliver on the promises that we're making when we didn't deliver on the promises when we had the power that the Republicans said they needed the power to deliver on.
Divided government.
You see where we're at? This is the game. This is fake Washington. This is the Truman Show. This is make-believe. but it's real to them because their future is way more important than yours.
The Jerry Doyle Show.
Here's the bottom line. There is no tax increase coming on the middle class, and there is no repeal of Obamacare coming in 2012. The only thing that's coming is November 6th, 2012. So make sure you get behind your team to make sure that your team gets the power so they can talk about how powerless they are against the power they're up against. That's the system, folks. It's a rigged game. Stick with me.
This is the Jerry Doyle Show.